It's a pleasure to be here. Again, my name is Dave Fiedler. I'm the Regulatory Affairs Officer of the Department of Environmental Quality. That's just a fancy title for a person who kind of pushes the rules through the rulemaking process in our department. We create a lot of rules. We also deal with policies. I'm also in our policy office. And so just to give you a little background of who I am. I should give you a little, start off with a disclaimer. I am not an expert in aquaculture. I'm not a biologist or a veterinarian. That is not my background, but I do know who in our departments are the experts. So that's the key thing here. And I will be identifying those people through my presentation. And I should mention, I did bring paper handouts of my talk. It's on the registration desk if you want to get a copy after the session. It's all there, but also you're going to get an electronic version of this presentation as well. And even though I'm not an expert, I am a participant in our Knights of Columbus fish fries, so I do have some experience with fish. And last Friday we had served over 900 meals, so it's pretty popular in the city of DeWitt, where I'm from. Let's start off with defining some terms, just to make sure you understand what regulations I'm going to talk about today. Again, here's a little definition of aquaculture. You can look in some of the statutes I'm going to talk about for a more complete definition of aquaculture, but I just want to stress we're talking about the commercial husbandry of aquatic species. So commercial is the key word here. We're going to talk about the different types of aquaculture. There's flow-through systems, recirculating systems, ponds, and then open water systems such as net pens. And it's important to distinguish these types as we talk about the regulations. Some of these types are going to have a lot more regulation than other types, and you'll see this as I go through the presentation. All of the regulations I'm going to talk about come from one of three departments for the state of Michigan: the Department of Environmental Quality, or DEQ. There's the Department of Agriculture and Rural Development, or MDARD, and then there's the Department of Natural Resources, or DNR. So those are the three agencies that have the regulations. Right now, we're all housed in the same building, which is good. It helps with our communication. We're not in any silos. We do communicate about these regulations, especially with aquaculture, because it hits all of our programs. We actually are having bi-weekly meetings on this topic right now, so we are very much aware of the aquaculture industry, and we are working together on those issues. Here's the most important slide that I'm going to present today. If you're thinking about aquaculture or starting a business in aquaculture, the best thing you can do is, first of all, call Mike DiBernardo, and he's our economic development specialist in MDARD. And what he can do, based upon what you tell him, he can organize either through a conference call or an in-person meeting. He can get all the appropriate people from all the agencies together to go through your proposal, to identify what regulations you might have to comply with. Also, he can help, through this meeting, we can help answer a lot of questions early on in the process so that you don't start off wasting a lot of your resources and energy as you try to go through the regulatory requirements. So this is an important person to contact if you're interested in going forward. So let's start with the first regulation. I'm going to start with the MDARD's regulations, and we'll start with the aquaculture licensing program. And for each of these sets of regulations I'm going to go through, these title slides, you'll see that I'm going to identify the authority or the act or statute that gives us the authority to regulate. I'll also talk about the agency, identify the agency, and the applicability, which systems or types of aquaculture systems are subject to this regulation. So you can see for this first one, aquaculture licensing, all of the different types of aquaculture have to be licensed. And there's basically two types of licenses when we talk about aquaculture. There's a facility registration license, and that's what most people are going to be getting. These, if you're growing fish that are on the approved species list that is identified in that Aquaculture Development Act, then you're going to apply for a facility registration. And I think in Michigan right now we have 55 facilities that have one of these licenses. If you choose to grow fish that are not on the approved species list, then you're going to have to get a research permit. And I think there's only one facility in Michigan that's doing that right now. And I think they're growing barramundi, which is, I guess, an Asian sea bass. So for the most part, you're going to probably fall under a facility registration. This is the form. I'm familiar with a lot of forms, and this is about the easiest form I've ever seen that the state government puts out. It's fairly simple, putting names and addresses in there and checking a few boxes. So it's not a very difficult thing to do. Let's talk about some of the timelines and fees. The registration fee is $100. The renewal rate's $75 annually. It expires in September 30th, so you want to renew prior to that date. And if you're going, when you do submit this permit, or before you submit your application, you should probably call MDARD, because the timing is important. This is a permit or a license you want to apply for perhaps about 60 days before you go into operation, because MDARD is going to have to come out and conduct an inspection before they can issue your license. And so the timing here is key. When MDARD comes out to inspect your facility, these are the things that they're going to look for. They're going to really look for, is there a potential for escapement of your fish? If it's in a pond or a flow-through system or a net pen, they're going to look at what are the possibilities of escapement and make sure that is minimized as much as possible. They're going to look at the species that you're growing. They're going to look at, help you identify some of the different record keeping you're going to have to do. If you're importing fish to start off your business, they'll go over those requirements that I'll talk about next. And they'll look at your wastewaters, any wastewater that you may be obtaining from wells. They'll look at your discharges. And mainly what they're trying to identify is to make sure you've got the proper permits from the DEQ that I'll talk about later. And they'll, again, want to know about what you're going to do with your disposal of a dead fish, and they'll go over all the fish health issues with you. So it's a very important inspection that is conducted before you get your business going. There are some exceptions from getting this license, and those are listed here. One is pet stores. Pet stores do not have to be licensed under this requirement. So that kind of talks about the very first requirement or license that you might have to apply or would have to apply for if you're going into aquaculture. This next regulation deals with importation, and again, this is done by MDARD, and it will affect could affect all types of aquaculture operations. And here I've identified the Animal Industry Act as another act that you should become familiar with regarding importation. So these are acts that aren't very long. These are acts you probably should look up and read to make sure you understand the requirements. But under aquaculture importation, basically you can't import fish without having some kind of a certificate, a lab analysis showing that you're bringing in healthy fish, that do not contain any pathogens. They're going to want you to test for VHS just to make sure we're not bringing in diseased fish. So these are the different types of certificates that you could use to kind of comply with the statute. Also, they're not allowing you to import fish from any hatchery that had an emergency fish disease within the past 2 years. And again, if there's any clinical signs or stress showing on the fish, they're not going to want you to bring those in either. They will ask you to obtain what's called a prior entry permit, which is not, it's basically a code number that you'll receive so that when you do your transportation, that'll be a code that relates to the approval that you've been given to go ahead and do this importation. Also under the Animal Husbandry Act, there is a requirement for you reporting any reportable diseases if that occurs at your facility. So there's requirements in the act that you should read about reporting on diseases. This last thing, I think a lot of people are aware, if you're a farmer, a lot of people know that there's these generally accepted aquaculture and management practices. These are voluntary practices that if you comply with those practices, you're not subject to any litigation for nuisance. If a neighbor wants to sue you, as long as you're complying with your GAMPs, then you're protected under the Right to Farm Act. But it's important for you, if you're going into this business, to read it's important for you to read the GAMP for aquaculture. There is one specifically for aquaculture. And again, I suggest you read that too for some helpful information on how to run a good business. Now, MDARD, as well as all the other agencies, have very good websites that contain a ton of information on everything that I just talked about. So with regards to MDARD's website, I've given you kind of a cheat sheet on how to get to the things that I just talked about. So these, if you want to learn more about licensing, I'm giving you the path to follow to navigate to that website, where you can get the actual application. Or if you're interested in importing, you can get you can have access to the Act, you can have access to more information on how to bring animals into Michigan. So those are some good things. If you want to look at the GAMP, there's a kind of a cheat sheet for you to get to that GAMP for aquaculture. So there's, again, this is stuff you can do. This is kind of your homework assignment if you want to really get into this. You can go back and read a lot of the information that is on our websites. So where to go for help? Dr. Nancy Barr, who is here today, she would be the one you'd call if you have any questions about the MDARD's regulations, about importing fish or about that license. And so she would be the one to contact. And again, as I said earlier, I know who the experts are, so that is one of them.
Is your loved one's health failing? Do they need the aid and attendance of other people for their daily living activities? Were they a veteran? If so, it is possible that they are eligible for a special pension called Aid and Attendance through the Veterans Administration that will assist in paying for their health care needs. There are 4 eligibility factors to consider, and you can find out if your loved one is eligible for any of these benefits just by making a phone call to elder law attorney Anna Duggins. She can be reached at 231-722-5415, or you can email her at aud@parmenterlaw.com.
The fresh and tasty deli located inside the Henry Street Health Hut offers a variety of options for every diet. Organic, raw, vegan, vegetarian, gluten, or grain-free. You can sample specialty sandwiches, or you can build your own wrapper salad by choosing from a wide selection of fresh meats, cheeses, veggies, and dressings. From gourmet soups to smoothies, shakes, juices, herbal teas and coffee to mouth-watering desserts. The fresh and tasty deli is here to serve you.
Appliance shopping can be confusing. At Seaway Appliance, we make it easy as 1, 2, 3. 1, we have a great selection of home appliances to choose from, and we offer competitive pricing.
2, the staff is friendly and knowledgeable, and our customers can enjoy a no-pressure experience.
3, we have our own professional service department.
Plus, because we're a brand source store, you know you're getting the best deal possible, saving you money.
Where are you going to shop for your next appliance or TV? Seaway Appliance. Thank you for your business.
Seaway Appliance.
Hi, I'm Brenda Harris with Nexus Realty, turning dreams into an address. I support DSE TV.
The next department in our quality of life agencies. And they have regulations regarding stocking fish in public waters. So here's the authority that they have to regulate the stocking of fish. And again, this could apply on all types of aquaculture operations. And again, the purpose of this regulation is just to make sure we're having healthy fish in the environment, that it's not causing any management problems that the DNR might be faced with down the road. So that is the kind of the reasons, or these are some of the reasons why we have a stocking fish requirement. Their application is just a 2-page application that you would fill out. I believe there's no fee associated with this permit. It's a fairly simple permit to fill out. But here are the steps to go about doing this. First of all, you got to determine whether or not the water you're stocking is considered public. And these are some of the criteria for public waters. They have to have a permanent outlet or inlet, or the waters have some type of public access to the site, or the waters have been previously stocked by the state of Michigan. So if it meets one of those criteria, it's public waters. The next step is then to complete that permit application that I just showed you. And again, this will ask you for fish health certification to make sure you're bringing in or stocking with healthy fish. And then you submit the application to the Fisheries Management Unit. And if you look at the application, and I'll show you where you get this application, it does have a list of all the different offices around the state, the fishery management offices. There's quite a few of them. So you would contact the one that's in your jurisdiction. And once you receive this permit, you can go ahead and do your stocking, but you have to contact the DNR at least 3 days before you do the stocking, just so that they may be there to observe what you're doing. And you have to have your permit on site while you're doing your stocking. And then there's some paperwork you have to do after you complete your stocking. So again, this is another regulation that you have to be familiar with. Just like with MDARD, DNR has a website that has information on stocking and the path that you can follow to get to that site is at the bottom of the page. So those are the two of the quality of life agencies that you have to comply with, or regulations you have to comply with. You should probably go right to the individuals that are identified in the Fisheries Management Unit office in the DNR. And again, there's more information on how to get to that. Their names are on the actual application, so if you get the application, you'll see who to contact if you have questions. All right, now we're going to step into the regulations that the DEQ has with regards to aquaculture. And this first one pertains to construction permit and bottom land conveyance. These are regulations that would apply just to net pens. So if you're doing recirculating systems or flow-through systems or a pond, you would not be subject to this. This is if you're actually going to put a pen or a cage into the Great Lakes to grow fish. This permit is required for anything that's going into the bottomlands of the Great Lakes. So if you're going to install a marina into the Great Lakes, you're going to get one of these permits. And it's kind of a two-parter. You're going to get a construction permit and then what's called a bottom land conveyance, or a use agreement with the state. So it's kind of two parts. But again, there's the authority and the agency and who it applies to is on that slide. Let's start with the construction permit. And this is an application that you would submit to the DEQ. It's called a joint permit application. And the reason why it's called a joint permit application, you're going to be sending it not only to the state of Michigan, but to the Army Corps of Engineers. So there's both a state and a federal review of this activity that will happen. But instead of submitting two separate permits, you'll complete this joint permit application to satisfy both agencies. There will be a 20-day public notice and hearing, both by the DEQ and the Army Corps of Engineers. The processing time is about 150 days. And again, what the purpose of this permit is to evaluate what impact you might have on the public use and enjoyment of that water. And so it deals with public trust. You know, nobody owns the bottomlands of the Great Lakes. The state of Michigan is kind of the trustee. We serve to protect that public trust, and we want to make sure we don't impact it negatively that would affect the use and enjoyment of that resource. The cost could range from $500 up to $2,000 to apply for this permit, and it's usually lasts for about 5 years, and then you would have to renew it. And there's a lot of information that has to be submitted into this permit. Like these other licenses and permits I just showed you, that's like a two-page kind of thing where you fill in the boxes and check the boxes and sign it. This is going to require a lot more effort when you submit this permit. You do fill out some boxes, but you have to attach a lot of information. And this just lists a lot of the different surveys and type of data they're going to need to make that decision on whether or not that permit would be approved. This is what the joint permit application looks like that you would fill out and then attach your documents to. So that's the first part. That's the construction permit. The next part is something called a bottomlands conveyance. And this is basically kind of like a lease or a private use agreement that you have with the state of Michigan to kind of lease that property to construct your facility and to keep it operational. And this will only be issued if your construction permit has been approved. And the length of this use agreement could last up to 50 years, or sometimes it could be less. And it'll contain some boilerplate language as well as some special conditions that you'll have to operate under. So there's a lot of information that goes into the conveyance. There is a fee for the conveyance or for this use agreement. I can't tell you exactly what that amount would be for like net pens in the Great Lakes, but there will be an annual fee to operate under that use agreement. And this is the application for the conveyance that you would have to submit. You have to provide information about the riparian owners to either side of your site. You have to provide information about who they are. And again, there's a lot of other information. To make this an administratively complete application, you have to provide a lot of information that there are listed here. You have to get some resolution from a local unit of government approving it, which is kind of like a zoning check, that your operation kind of complies with the zoning requirements in the area. But there's a survey that you have to complete to provide kind of a legal description of the land in the bottomlands that you're going to be occupying and operating under. So again, more information about our submerged lands program or the bottomlands and construction permits are on our website. That's where you go to get to it. And for conveyances or the use agreements, there's a separate site for that. And our expert in this area is Tom Graff, who works in our Department of Environmental Quality, and he's the person that can, again, answer a lot of questions that you may have about this regulation.
For years, people have put together photo collages for special occasions. They go through the photo album and old shoe boxes and pull out their favorite photos and put them on poster boards. The boards are a great way of sharing stories, but it can be a pretty tedious job. Well, we here at Clocks, we want to make that job easier for you. So just bring us all the photos and we'll scan them into the computer, and then we'll print out the collages on our large format printer. That way, all the photos will be in digital format so you can share them with your friends and relatives.
Your child's education matters. That's why at Muskegon Public Schools, we encourage early childhood development by providing childcare, preschool, and Head Start. Two-way language immersion and academically focused after-school activities are also an option. High school students benefit from advanced placement classes, nationally recognized athletics and fine arts, and the International Baccalaureate Diploma Program. For more information or to enroll, call 720-2000. Muskegon Public Schools, providing the best for every child, every day.
Hello, Muskegon. My name is Mark Dubin. I'm the owner here at RPM Automotive. We've been here since 1996. We're a full-service auto repair center. We do both foreign and domestic repairs. Most of our repairs are performed same day. We do everything from AC, engine repair, and computer diagnostics. Feel free to call or come by and see us. We're located on Getty Street, next to the Getty Street Grill.
Buckwheat Schultz & Associates Incorporated, investment products and services. For more information, call 799-9889 or 866-799-9889.
So going to our last major regulation for aquaculture, this is dealing with something called the National Pollution Discharge Elimination System, or the NPDES permit. And this is based on federal law. It's based on the Federal Clean Water Act. The state of Michigan has authority to implement this part of the Clean Water Act. So its basis is federal. So it's important to note that. And again, this is going to apply to aquaculture operations that discharge to surface water, to discharge to a stream or a river or a lake. If you have some kind of a discharge like that, then you would need to get one of these permits. But there are some exceptions, and I'll mention that a little bit later. There is an application fee and then an annual permit fee to operate under an NPDES. It's going to last for 5 years, and then it has to be renewed. This is kind of a lengthy permit process, and you want to probably, this is the permit you'd want to start very early on in the process. Before you submit your licenses to MDARD, you want to get a jump on getting this NPDES permit approved before you can start operation. There's public comment, and there may be a public hearing required depending on the nature of your permit. So that just the public comment and hearing add a lot of extra time in the processing of your NPDES permit. But I mentioned there are some exceptions. If you meet one of these criteria, you have to get a permit. So if you're producing more than 20,000 pounds of fish per year, you're subject. If you're feeding more than 5,000 pounds of food per maximum feeding month, you're subject. And if you discharge more than 30 days. So if you're under those criteria, then you're not subject to this requirement. The permit, I can't go into a lot of discussion about this. This could take a whole day to talk about because there's a lot of requirements, and it's a very complex and sophisticated permit. There are the three major things I want to talk about are effluent limit guidelines. These are kind of standardized requirements that go across the whole sector, and these are federal requirements that EPA developed specifically for aquatic animal production. So it is important to read those. This kicks in if you're producing more than 100,000 pounds of fish per year. So some of you may have to get an NPDES permit, but may not be subject to this effluent limit guideline if your production is in between 20,000 and 100,000 pounds of fish. But they are not numerical standards. They're basically management practices that you have to follow at your facility. And again, these apply to all different types of aquaculture operations. As long as you're having a discharge, you're subject to it. There's also a piece in this permit called anti-degradation where you have to kind of do a narrative and explain what are the justable benefits for you to discharge pollutants into the river. You know, all these operations are going to have some kind of discharge of pollutants into the river or to a lake. And you need to justify economically, perhaps, why this is good for society, basically. You could say, you could identify what jobs are being created, how it's going to improve the economics in the area, but it is part of the application. You also have to identify what alternatives have you looked at that might be provide less impairment to the natural resources or to the environment. And then finally, there's the water quality-based effluent limits. And these are kind of site-specific. It's based upon the receiving stream or lake that you're discharging to. And it deals with a variety of parameters. Like for aquaculture, it would deal with total suspended solids, phosphorus, pH. And depending on the stream, it might even include ammonia or carbonaceous biological oxygen demand. Again, I don't even know what that means, but that's one of the parameters that could be looked at depending on where you're discharging. Again, we have a website where to go for more help on the NPDES permit. And this is where you can get the application and get more information about how to do an anti-degradation analysis. So that wraps up, I think, the core regulations that you need to consider with regards to aquaculture. Now, depending on your site, there might be other regulations, and I'm going to be developing this a lot more, but I put a few of them on here. If you're constructing a facility to start off your aquaculture operations and you might be impacting a wetlands or an inland lake or stream, these are some regulations that could require permits. And again, we can answer those questions in that pre-application meeting with Mike DiBernardo. We can kind of go over what other requirements might be applicable. If you're withdrawing large quantities of water, like from an artesian well, to operate your aquaculture facility, you may need to get a water withdrawal permit from our department. And we're researching other possible rules. There's something called the Part 5 rules in our program that deal with the containment of chemicals. So if you're using antibiotics or disinfectants, we want to make sure those are properly stored that wouldn't cause any damage to the environment. And so it's mainly a kind of a spill prevention program that you may be subject to. Lastly, the Michigan Aquaculture Association has a great document on their website that also helps you go through these maze of regulations. It's called the Roadmap Through Regulation. That's on their website. So I'd strongly suggest you go to the association's website to get this document as well. It'll cover some things that I did not cover today. This is a bad slide, but I just wanted to summarize this. Those units on the y-axis mean nothing, but it's basically showing that hopefully if you've been listening, if you're going to do a recirculating aquaculture system, there's very few regulations you have to comply with. It's mainly the license from MDARD, and that's about it. I mean, that's it, assuming you're discharging to POTW. There's no other really permits you're going to require from our agencies. But as you go through up to net pens, you know, the amount of regulation increases. I don't want to say exponentially, but it increases. So that's just one thing, just how I want to kind of summarize what I just went over. And I think I'm done with my presentation.
The Pizza Ranch, featuring a buffet that is guaranteed to please even the pickiest eaters. From a full soup and salad bar, pizzas and breadsticks, to mouth-watering roasted chicken, potatoes and gravy, vegetables, drinks and desserts, all for just one price. Their menu features a wide variety of delectable favorites. You can dine in, carry out, or have your meals delivered. There's something for everyone at the Pizza Ranch.
City Glass and Mirror features glass for every purpose, servicing both residential and commercial. Their full-service showroom displays every aspect of what City Glass has to offer: handrails, closet systems, replacement windows, bath hardware, shower doors, and custom mirrors. They even offer auto glass and storefronts to see all they have to offer. City Glass and Mirror, located at 100 West 7th Street in Grand Haven and 631 Commerce Court, Suite 10 in Holland.
For active seniors and those over 50 seeking fitness and wellness programs, arts, music, and travel, then Agewell Service is your answer. We offer a variety of activities, classes, and clubs to help you live healthier, enjoy life to the fullest. Whether you travel with us, walk on our treadmills, take classes in watercolor, computers, Tai Chi, yoga, or Zumba, or just gather with friends in the Tanglewood Cafe, we are the specialists to help you age well. Agewell Services offers something for every older adult. Stop in and learn more about Agewell Services at Tanglewood Park, 560 Seminole Road, Norton Shores, or call 733-8643.
Next speaker is Jude Berry from MSU, who's going to talk about access of seafood to regional and local food market systems.
Right. Well, thank you very much. And I like the disclaimer of the speaker before, because they had not claimed they hadn't done a lot of work with fish. And we too at the Center for Regional Food Systems haven't done an awful lot of work with fish. And so we're kind of excited to be invited here today to talk about some of our work and to see where opportunities might lie. So thank you very much for the invitation. My talk today is going to really talk about what we mean by local and regional food systems and what we hope to achieve. I'll talk briefly on the market for Michigan fish as briefly as we understand it, which isn't a huge amount, and then talk about some of the activities that we're doing that could potentially help access local food systems for fish markets. So I'm Jude Barry, a food system specialist at the Center for Regional Food Systems, and our mission is to engage the people of Michigan, the United States and the world in applied research, education, and outreach to develop regionally integrated sustainable food systems. What do I mean by a local food system? Well, it's pretty much similar to any food supply chain across the world, except it's regionally defined. So when we talk about Michigan local food systems, we talk about all the players within that food system benefiting within the state of Michigan. So they're growing Michigan, processing Michigan, manufacturing, distributing, retailing, and eating within Michigan. And just to expand on that a little bit further, we at the Center for Regional Food Systems have been talking a lot about good food, which is a good food system. And by good food, we mean one that's healthy and it provides nourishment and enables people to thrive. It's green in that it's produced in a sustainable manner. It's fair, such that all in the food supply chain, those that I mentioned, are not being exploited in order for the food to be created. And it's affordable, such that people have access to it. When we started doing this work back in 2010, we identified, and we work a lot with fruit and vegetable growers and all the way through the supply chain. Only about 40% of Michigan had, it was measured, had access to fresh fruits and vegetables. So part of this good food system that we're talking about is increasing access of good food to more people in Michigan. And obviously, as you think about the supply chain, that supports economic development, the environment, food justice, and improves public health right across the state of Michigan, which I think is a good thing. So back in 2010, we together, the Center for Regional Food Systems, together with the Michigan Food Policy Council and the Food Bank Council of Michigan, developed the Michigan Good Food Charter, which addresses food system issues to benefit those in Michigan. And that charter was really a vision and a roadmap with which to develop such a system. And we developed 6 goals and 25 agenda priorities. And you can find more about this at the website michiganfood.org. So the vision of the Michigan Good Food Charter is that we envision a thriving economy, equity, and sustainability for all of Michigan and its people through a food system that's rooted in local communities and centered on good food, healthy, green, fair, and affordable food. We have 6 goals, which by 2020 we hope to achieve. Those 6 goals, number 1 is that Michigan institutions will source 20% of food from Michigan. Michigan farmers will profitably supply 20% of all Michigan markets and be able to pay fair wages in doing that. Generate businesses at a rate that enables 20% of Michigan food to come from Michigan, so primarily ag food businesses. And the goal 4 is that 80% of all Michigan residents, that's twice what was measured in 2010, will have access to good food. Goal 5 is that 100% of school meals and 75% of schools selling food will meet Michigan nutrition standards. And goal 6 is that Michigan schools will incorporate food and ag into pre-K through K-12 curricula. One of the big issues in agriculture is getting more kids and more people involved in farming and agribusiness and all the many career opportunities that exist within this thriving industry. So goal 6 is really hoping to address that. So the Good Food Charter work is much of what we coordinate. We have a resolution of support, which basically, if you were interested in, if you're supporting any of the goals, you can sign. I have postcards here, but you can sign on to that. We have about 400 organizations that are supportive of the Good Food Charter and are in some way working towards those goals. We have a Good Food Steering Committee, which is made up of about 20 organizations from across the state and is really guiding the work and is particularly focusing on policy these days. Research and outreach we do. We've had a Michigan Good Food Summit, which we hold every 2 years with a lot of success. We also have a newsletter. So we have the Center for Regional Food Systems is a growing organization. The specific people that work on the Good Food team are Rich Pirog here. He's our Senior Associate Director. myself and Noel Balachik work on livestock issues within the state, within the centre, and Noel is actually came from being a fishmonger, so he would have been ideal to come and talk to you today, but unfortunately he was unable. And then we also, the Good Food Charter folks are myself, Catherine and Liz, and Colleen Matz here works on farm to institution work, and all of them have helped supply slides today. So to talk about seafood markets, our work has really not crossed over into seafood a lot. And so what we did was we made some phone calls and talked to people that we work with that move product from Michigan to Michigan. And so talked to some of the distributors. And we've done this sort of assessment on different food products with a lot of people across the value chain to try and understand what's limiting it, why are we not selling more product into the state? And so this was a very short, sweet little research project we did over the phone over the last couple of weeks. But basically the 4 people that we talked to, they're all distributors of Michigan meat, fruit and vegetables, and to some extent they're doing distributing fish. And so some of the obstacles that they talked about that are reasons they're not selling more fish are, first of all, supply. They found that they're struggling to source Michigan fish. They indicated that the processing, there was potentially an opportunity for additional infrastructure. They suggested that the products that they needed to sell were not in the correct form that consumers were demanding. For example, they could source whole fish but not filleted fish. And then they talked about what their consumers were saying. And obviously, what the consumer says is not always how it actually is, but this is how the consumers perceive things. They said that people prefer fresh versus frozen, and this is the case in much of the meat markets that we're working in as well. Especially chefs are requiring fresh food. In meat markets, obviously, in Michigan, you have seasonal production, and so to be able to sell frozen meat, it would clearly be of benefit, but the consumer is demanding fresh product currently until we can do better education in that area. People like common, well-known fish products like salmon, tuna, and shrimp. There is a fear of contamination. They have an allegiance to other well-named sources. So one of those examples was wild Gulf shrimp. And most felt that there was a demand and this sector could grow. But obviously, in order consumer perception is not necessarily how it is in the fish world. And so education, I think, is key in supporting market as in any other marketing arena. Another thing that they talked about was price, that they felt it was higher than some of their other sources. And they also felt that there could be improved communication between the producer, the processor, and the buyer, and which I think is very common across all products that are moving within Michigan. We have, and really that's kind of how our work has modeled, that improving this communication across the whole supply chain helps move more product. So these issues are very similar to other work we're doing. And so I wanted to talk briefly about some of our activities that we're doing, which may also be relevant to folks in the room here that are trying to move more fish product within Michigan.
The Village at Park Terrace Senior Living Community, offering beautiful yet affordable 1- and 2-bedroom apartment homes as well as 2-bedroom cottages. Rent includes a wide variety of exceptional services, from daily meals shared in the dining room or delivered to your door, to scheduled activities and social events, to 24-hour emergency on-call service. Their expert, caring staff is there to assist you with all of your retirement needs. The Village at Park Terrace Senior Living Community, where you can enjoy the luxuries and comfort of your own home without the work and worry.
A
Established in 1973 by Paul M. Lattis, Lattis & Hoops Law Offices has been a multi-service law firm specializing in accident cases, personal injury, wrongful death, Social Security disability, divorce, probate and wills, and real estate. When it comes to choosing the right attorney for your legal needs, don't choose out of town, choose local legal counsel. It really pays. It's experience when it counts. It's Lattis & Hoops Law Offices.
Culver's Concrete Mixers, the creamiest way to eat a Reese's peanut butter cup. We put as much care into our fresh frozen custard as Reese's puts into its peanut butter cups. Not only do we use family farm fresh dairy, we also use the best vanilla and cocoa beans. Handcrafting each concrete mixer, it creates a perfect blend. Which brings us back to this, the creamiest way to eat a Reese's. Put the spoon in straight and tall, you've got a perfect concrete mixer. Welcome to Delicious.
So I work and coordinate with Noel Balachik, the livestock work group, which is a group of faculty from across campus here at Michigan State University. It's a wide, diverse range of expertise. I think Bill Knudsen is in the room. He's an economist, and we have, in addition to him, we have sociologists, animal scientists, vet specialists, and plant biologists, a huge range of people that are coming together to support the regional livestock system in Michigan. And our goal of this work group is to coordinate research and education and outreach to identify local and regional challenges confronting the livestock, food and fiber products in Michigan, and to collaborate with members across the value chain to improve that. So some of the things that we've done are to pull together stakeholders from across Michigan, producers, distributors, processors, retailers, restaurants, consumer folks, government and regulatory people, to talk about what some of those challenges are that are preventing people from selling more meat products. And we identified a number of bottlenecks, and we've actually got a paper on our website to talk about this, but some of these issues were, as I mentioned before, year-round consistency, regulations. We've heard today a lot about regulations, and it's no different in fish to meat and other products. The challenge of overcoming those regulations, understanding them, and making them cost-effective in a business. Market value. And the value position of certain meat products, how they're priced and how they're competitive with other products is certainly a challenge. Record keeping, and there were some phenomenal records up here earlier, but I think that's also a challenge within many livestock businesses, and connecting the markets. There was all of the stakeholders, or many of the stakeholders across the state regarding livestock said that they need help. They're very good at producing the product, but they're not so good at selling it. And so I know Kendra talked today about selling at farmers markets. Not everyone is set up to sell at a farmers market. And so how can they sell into Michigan and be able to connect to markets with the skills and abilities and availability that they have? We applied for some funding, and we now, USDA actually gave us a grant of $500,000 with which to fund a market intermediary to help connect markets, and Noel is actually doing that. That's why he came to the center, to build across markets and help connect and improve communication. And with that funding, we're also doing a number of research projects to address some of the specific issues that were raised. Food hubs is another way. Rich Pirog and Noel Blachik are doing a lot of work on food hubs across the state. They're coordinating a network. And this is another way that food can be accessed regionally. A regional food hub is a business, this is how USDA define it, is a business or organization that actively manages the aggregation, distribution, and marketing of source-identified food products, in other words, local, in this case, food products, primarily from local producers to strengthen their ability to satisfy wholesale, retail, and institutional demand. Very often, a smaller producer can't meet the demand of one buyer, but as an aggregation can. So at the Center for Regional Food Systems and in collaboration with Morse Marketing, we have developed a Michigan Food Hub network, which is looking to grow food hubs across the state and build farmer capacity and regional supply chains to accelerate these food systems and economies. And we are specifically looking in line with our funding, as well as the need to supply healthy foods to underserved markets. And this is just a bit more about the Food Hub Network. As I mentioned, Rich and Marty are involved in that. They have 6 local food hub facilitators across the state. There's a listserv and recurring webinars on, and those can be found on our website. And they're our funders. So another network that we are growing in, that originated at the Center for Regional Food Systems, but really is run by many across the state, is the Michigan Farm to Institution Network. The purpose of that is to create space for learning, sharing, and working together such that we can get 20% of Michigan foods to institutions by 2020, which is goal 1 of the Michigan Good Food Charter. And in line with doing that, we would like to see farmers profitable in supplying that. And that's the website. Part of the Michigan Farm to Institution Network is a campaign that they've started called Cultivate Michigan. And that's really a means to support institutes and farmers in institutions and farmers in achieving that goal. It's designed to track purchases and to measure statewide impacts, and it's also there to facilitate some of the movement of products. So it's promoting many of the efforts. They've have featured foods, one every quarter. Last year they did asparagus, blueberries, tomatoes, and apples, and this year they're set to do milk, peppers, winter squash, and dry beans. Perhaps one day they'll have a fish on there. So if we can build that, that would be awesome. So cultivatemichigan.org is where that information could be found. We've heard this morning about some of the funding opportunities. Michigan Good Food Fund is a new thing that's going to be launched this summer, and it's a public-private partnership loan and grant fund. So this will improve, the idea of this is to improve the lives of Michigan residents living in underserved communities by supporting food production, expanding access to healthy foods, catalyzing economic development, and creating permanent jobs. So it's going to be a loan and a grant opportunity, and it does include food hubs, which is part of the reason that we're involved. That there are 4 partners on that. The W.K. Kellogg Foundation, Capital Impact Partners is going to be the loan agency, and then Fair Food Network and ourselves are working at coordinating that. So lots is going on in the local and regional food world, but we are very conscious that we need to know how effective this work is. So we are, and also I should point out that all of these activities in moving product within Michigan don't happen with just one partner. It's really a collective effort across the state. My first slide was all the people involved in moving food. So it really is a collective process. And so it's very hard to measure the impact of that, but we have got a shared measurement project going on this year at the Center for Regional Food Systems that is looking to measure the change in the goals and whether we are actually achieving 20% by 2020. So that's a project we're moving forward on, and we'll have a pilot measuring system by January 2016. So I guess relating all of these activities back to fish in Michigan, some of the questions that probably you ask on a daily basis, but as fitting into local and regional food systems, we would want to ask, and to better understand the industry, would be what are the current sales? So to what extent is Michigan fish currently being sold into local markets, and where is it being sold? In line with what is happening, what's the capacity for Michigan to produce fish, and is there capacity to sell more product into Michigan, and what fish products might those be? And then finally, and probably it should be the first point, market demand. Is there demand for more Michigan fish products by Michigan consumers? We did a very quick, rough study and indicated that probably Michigan would consume more meat if it was available. So that would be something that we would be interested to look at further. And based on the answers to these questions, it would be beneficial to tap into some of these existing networks to help move more fish into local and regional markets. So thank you.
In the 150 years we've been in business, many things have changed. Our greatest achievements are rooted in the things that haven't. Years ago, the person you called banker was also the person you called friend. When it came to service, there were fewer layers and friendlier smiles. And banks earned the trust of their customers and community while working tirelessly not to lose it. At Independent Bank, all this remains true today. Sure, we've made advances that help customers bank more conveniently and more comfortably. But at the end of the day, we know that people really need a trustworthy partner committed to their financial goals, dreams, and aspirations. And we've been happy to be that partner since 1864.
Roll, tumble, jump, and dance with the stars here at Castle Dance and Gymnastics. From 16 months to adults, Castle offers a safe and friendly atmosphere. Located at 1180 Devon Drive, their number is 231-798-8418. Or find them at castlegymdance.com.
Serving the Fruitport area for over 40 years, Grover Pharmacy offers a full line of vitamins, supplements, and homeopathic medicines, as well as a variety of glucometers, blood pressure kits, baby care items, bandages, and wound care products. They carry office and school supplies, Russell Stover candies, promotional and seasonal items, and Hallmark cards and gifts. Grover Pharmacy, they take time to care about you.
I'm an aquaculture extension specialist here at Michigan State University, and I cover a 12-state region. Essentially, I'm an aquaculture industry liaison for 12 states. Half my time is from Michigan right now, which I think is a good place to be. We have up here, this is the aquaculture tech panel, and we have up here, I was kind of forced to narrow it down to just a couple. So what I did is I brought Kent Harrican from Aquaculture Research Corporation, based out of Ann Arbor or Tecumseh. And he's kind of dabbled in various areas of indoor research systems. And he's also looking in net culture right now. And we've got Steve O from Pentair. Pentair is the pretty much the largest equipment manufacturer. They also do consulting. I'm going to let both these guys kind of give their own speeches here. What I'm going to do is talk very quickly about the aquaculture systems out there in use. The types of systems out there that are pretty typical are the ponds, the flow-through, the nets, baskets, and lines, pens and cages, research systems, the RAS, and aquaponics. There's also some new stuff out here, IMTAs and partition. Essentially what I want to just do is kind of show you a quick overview of what the ponds are. They're rather extensive systems, although when you start putting aeration in these, which they typically do, it can ramp up the intensity pretty high. We have flow-through raceways. Essentially, you've got water coming in the head here. It goes through the raceway in a plug flow through fashion. It goes, all of the fish experience all the same water. You can collect, you settle the solids out here. You can send those to a clarifier and get them out of the system. And then you reuse the water into the next raceway. You might have to add some aeration or oxygenation here. Nets, baskets, and lines. We don't practice a whole lot of this here in our area. But essentially what they do is this is mainly for shellfish and for seaweed. Seaweed, they call it sea vegetables now, you know, and it's becoming more and more. And it's more of an ethnic issue, but we're seeing it more and more in the United States. Pens and cages, essentially, you set these pens out in open water systems. Some slight currents come through here. These are rather low density systems. This you can kind of consider, you might look at it kind of like terrestrial farming. So you have these places in location, you grow them for a while, you kind of let them fallow for a little bit, and then you can go back and do it. It's very efficient. This is an Ontario facility up in existence right now. Indoor research systems, they get very high intensity, very high controls. You start getting into really high capital intensity. Essentially, they're indoor, typically indoor, but not always. You got the fish tank. You remove the solids through hydraulics. You send the solids through a clarifier. Then the clarified water you send through a biofilter to reduce the ammonia. Then you send it back to the fish after maybe some oxygenation. This is a facility in Alaska that I helped in the consulting with. Essentially, they produce 2 facilities in Alaska, I think, for a total of $178 million. Those are state hatchery systems. Aquaponics has really taken kind of a real heavy interest within the last, I'd say, 5 years. We have some aquaponics specialists in this room right now. Essentially, it's combining fish with hydroponics. The jury's really not out on the cost effectiveness of these, and I would say that we're just not there yet. But it's certainly, I think RAS and this are investments for the future. This is UVI, University of Virgin Islands. This is the type of aquaponics system that I would look for. Essentially, it's got your fish tanks, it's got your solids clarifiers. So in my opinion, you have to get the solids out before you can send it to your plant beds out here. And then, so you got it's kind of like a research system. You get the solids out clarifying, then you send the water over to your plants. This is your biofilter, and you send it back to your fish. IMTA is kind of a new area. It's the Integrated Multi-Trophic Aquaculture Systems. And what they're doing is they're combining fish production, let's say in cages, and they're also growing, you might have sea cucumbers down here, you have seaweed over here, you have shellfish. So it's kind of combining the entire realm of things in the marine systems. And this is a picture from National Geographic. This is the actual experimental IMTA system that's existing in Hawaii, I believe. Partitioned aquaculture system. This is kind of a new area. The catfish farmers are kind of going this route. I think it's kind of being pushed by, I believe it's Auburn. But what they do is, instead of having the catfish in the entire pond, they're putting them into these smaller raceways in the pond and making them under very high intensity. And then they move the water through the pond for the ammonia, for oxygenation using photosynthesis, and then they send it back to the fish. So those are the type of systems we're going to be talking about. I know there's a lot of experts besides these two in the room, and so if we're going to do a quick introduction here, and then we're going to open up for questions. I think maybe first we'll keep the questions towards systems themselves and move forward after that.
You know, this slide goes back to, if any of you have seen this document that came out last year on the Michigan Strategic Plan for Aquaculture. And this is probably one of the things that we haven't talked much about as to actually what's the direction Michigan's going to choose to go. But there's really this Blue Bayou zone where you're much smaller farmers. You know, you keep below 20,000 pounds, as Dave mentioned, so you stay out of the NPDES permits. And perhaps you have a proliferation of small farms and very owner-operated and locally grown connectivity with that. And in the upper right quadrant is more of an industrial, large-scale. Again, there's still moderate size that builds you up through there. But when you look at the global picture of where aquaculture is and how it fits with the wild fisheries and the challenges through there, with the waters Michigan has, the potential lies in the upper right corner, but it's really a decision we make whether we choose to head that direction or not. And I think one of the things we put forward in the strategic plan was to really consciously make that decision, because it's not going to happen by accident that you head to the right corner. And other states have chosen deliberately the path to stay in the bottom, or, you know, on the left side, the upper left. And for instance, Ohio has seen an expansion, almost a doubling of the number of farms, and they've grown from $2 million in revenue to nearly $6 million in revenue. But that's a very big different picture than looking at a $500 million or $1 billion type of industry. Our focus has been really on the challenge of building the industry, and we've been focused on investing and impacting the growth of the building blocks that are needed to get there. We've been doing that from the nonprofit side, trying to lay out some of the things, including looking at the strategic plan, working on the regulatory processes, et cetera. But in there, what I want to talk a little bit about today, because it kind of fits into this, is if you want to move towards an industry, one of the major issues that happens is really looking at the supply chain and how that builds out, and the kind of challenge it takes, you know, for us to build that out. It's not a sexy area to talk about, but, you know, supply chain is really about the reliability of the delivery and the quality along the entire production cycle. And one of the ways to build that out is to start by reducing risk. And two of the major issues in reducing the risk is to make decisions on the species you're growing, as well as the type of grow-out system you use. And if you choose those right, you can start to separate out challenges of fingerlings, of processing, and feed supply from the actual growing out unit. And so this is an example. You know, for Michigan, what we did is we selected rainbow trout and started developing sort of the model of these different different components around a 500 metric ton production unit. So you'll see throughout this, we use a generic explanation of a 500 metric ton production unit. In this case, it's a net. And you know, you can see the fingerling, you know, each of these blocks really represents different productivity and management challenges to actually produce what you're trying to and manage your business. And so fingerling has its own, you know, unique set of issues to it with feed and water flows. And to get into this 500 metric ton unit, you need to be producing, if you average it out, you know, roughly 20,000 fingerlings a week need to be flowing in this. And the reality is there's peaks and valleys in there in addition. And with that, with the production coming off, processing has to handle, again, another 20,000 pounds a week on a regular basis. And then with that, there's solids management of the offal that becomes almost, you know, 5 tons a week that you're managing, which, you know, all has its own unique issues to it. And of course, the feed supply, which as you go to this kind of a unit, is almost 1.5 metric tons.
ASAP Auto Sales, located at 2486 South Getty Street in Muskegon, offers a wide selection of reasonably priced used vehicles from cars and trucks to vans, SUVs, and four-wheel drives. With new selections coming in every day, ASAP's lot is always full, which means whenever you drop in, there's about 100 vehicles to choose from. With a wide selection of vehicles, both domestic and import, they have it all. ASAP Auto Sales, 231-830-9000.
For nearly 9 years, West Michigan Driving Academy has been providing Muskegon County with complete, comprehensive driver's education. Students spend time both in the classroom and on the road in a state-approved driver's education vehicle with state-certified instructors. West Michigan Driving Academy is the only school in Muskegon that offers both day and evening classes throughout the summer. Accident-free with 150 years of combined experience, you will drive safe at West Michigan Driving Academy.
Muskegon Area District Library, formerly the Muskegon County Library for the Blind and Physically Handicapped, offering public library books and magazines, both fiction and nonfiction, to visually and physically impaired individuals. With their new location at 4845 Airline Road, they can be contacted at 231-737-6310.
Benson's Drug Company, the home of Benson's Bottom Pain. Offering an expanded grocery selection, Medicare billing, and diabetes management and education. Benson's now features a Kodak machine, which allows customers to edit, copy, and develop their own photos.
Now, when I go to another type of production unit in a flow-through, you still have the same challenges to the fingerling, the feed, the processing, and managing those pieces. But now you've added 2 additional ones. The water flow rate that you need for a flow-through unit like this is close to 20 million gallons per day as a source. And as well as Chris mentioned, you're clarifying and settling out the solid waste, which you're not doing in the nets. Now you have to manage nearly 1.5 tons a week or so of solid waste and figure out how that gets utilized in the process. And then as you get to a recirculating system, you are not using as much water in the makeup of this. And in fact, you can, 250,000 gallons a day, that's about 175 gallons per minute. It's a good sized well, but it's not, it's not difficult to think of that's a groundwater source supply. And now you have more control over both the solid settling as well as a kind of a gray water area of the liquid that you've got more control of than you do in the flow-through side. So there's potential for additional revenue streams, really, that you have to maximize to account for some of the capital costs in a recirculating system. In addition, because of the power and the heating and cooling loads required, it starts to become very attractive to really run a combined power and heat center to feed this kind of a unit. Each of those are totally different management challenges. and it would be almost impossible to try to do all of them well within one type of management. In addition, to keep the reliability to feed these production units, each of those blocks, you typically use a rule of about 20%, that you never really want to have any one of your customers or your suppliers being more than 20%. So if I look at that way, I can look at the fingerlings and say, really you want to be getting your fingerling supply not from someone who only produces 20,000 a week, but you want someone who's supplying you 100, who's capable of 100,000 a week and supplying other customers. So kind of multiply everything out by 5 from around this 500 metric ton production unit. I think it's kind of interesting.
CHP,
yeah.
What is that?
Combined heat and power. And it's a lot of some of the different biofuel type things. So just to kind of walk through the supply chain comparison to put this in perspective, total production 2013 for trout in Michigan was about 66 tons per year. So jumping to 500 metric ton would be nearly a 10-time increase in production with just one production unit. And you can kind of walk your way through some of those numbers. We don't do anything on that scale today. And we produce roughly $1 million to $2 million, I think is the official number. This is the official number for trout. But an entire industry that's about $2 million a year. And so, again, you start to see the scalability challenges of stepping through this, and this is still a very modest growth in the production side. So.
Oh, okay. Actually, I'm gonna, excuse me, just go back to your slide if you don't mind, Kent. Just two things. I was kind of got ambushed for this technology panel, so I don't have a slide to go through, and I'm gonna make it fairly quick so we can open it up for the panel discussion itself. This is actually a really great slide. By the way, I'm Steve. I'm the sales manager responsible for the Midwest region for Pantera Aquatic Ecosystems. Just a quick, brief history. Pantera Aquatic Ecosystem is the largest source of aquaculture equipment in North America and probably in the world as well. But not only do we provide equipment necessary to provision a RAS facility like this, we also have a great group of engineers, aquaculture engineers, that have been in the business for 20+ years that can assist with design. So what we can provide as a company is everything from a design point of view, feasibility studies, equipment provision, project management, what else? Project management, as well as a commissioning and sales support as well. Having said that, just going back to this slide, this is what our company is focusing on as well, because we know, like Kent said, right now you're doing 66 metric ton per year for trout as a state. I have clients that are doing 500 metric ton to 1,000 metric ton a year out of a small, relatively smaller sized facility throughout North America currently. So, like Kent said, if you want to grow the industry, as much as there's plentiful water and land here to maximize, your profitability and feasibility, RAS is probably the way to go moving into the future. Having said that, does that mean, you got to get away from the traditional pond and whatnot? I think, there's the trade deficit for seafood is so huge in the States. It's not going to be just one industry. I think that's going to be a monopoly for many years to come. It's going to be a variety of them. So, anyways, having said that, I'll leave it to the questions in terms of specific equipment that's used in a RAS facility. But as Kent pointed out, it's not just the production unit. You still have to wait. You still have to account for treating your solids and your liquid waste. As you can see, it's quite a bit more than it would be through a pond or flow through, for that matter. And same with the heating, as well as the actual production facility itself. In an intensive system like this, you have to be very careful. In a pond setting, you could lose one of your pumps or aerators and kind of chug along for a day or two before you get any problems, maybe a little bit less. But in an intensive facility like this, you lose a critical component, especially oxygen. 18-20 minutes, that's all you got before you lose pretty much everything tied to that component that's failed. So in terms of design, something you want to do is, rather than doing one 500 metric ton, even though economies of scale says it's better to do that, you might be better looking at, say, 250 metric ton, a modular system, so that if one does fail, you don't lose 100% of your crop, you only use 50%. And all these are factors that you need to think about. I get clients, I speak with a lot of existing clients and potential clients, and before I go, I just want to say most critical component, I think, is make sure you have a good business plan made up. Absolutely, you got to know, like, supply chain is critical, marketing is critical, having the people trained in aquaculture is critical to be able to run your facility. So these are all factors that everybody should be looking at if they're wanting to get into aquaculture.
Your vehicle is an important part of your life. It gets you where you need to go. Take care of it by bringing it to Van's Car Wash and Quick Lube. At Van's Quick Lube, every vehicle gets up to 6 quarts of high-quality Quaker State oils, new oil filter, and a free car wash with every service. If you need a quick wash that is done right the first time, then stop by any convenient Van's Car Wash and experience the hand-scrubbed and Simonized difference. Keep your car running and looking great at Van's Car Wash and Quick Lube. 6 convenient locations, 1 near you.
McDonald's Candies. 1064 South Getty Street in Muskegon features an assortment of chocolate-covered nuts and creams, peanut clusters, fudge, seafoam, turtles, cherry cordials, and regular and holiday novelties.
Hello, my name is Brett Wright. I own and operate Phoenix Crematory Services. Phoenix Crematory Services is located in Muskegon, Michigan, and we work with area funeral homes offering cremation services. We also are able to work directly with your family and their cremation needs. If you would like more information on the services that we have to offer, please contact us 231-733-5200 or go on our website www.muskegoncremation.com. Thank you.
At Langlois Home Furnishing in Muskegon, we've been serving West Michigan for over 65 years. Langlois is a local family-owned store with national buying power. We carry the largest selection of mattresses from Serta in West Michigan. Plus, we can help with design ideas. We also have a great selection of the latest top brand appliances and HD TVs. Discover what's new for you at Langlois Home Furnishings on Henry Street in Muskegon.
So, are there questions for this group relating to systems? Over here.
I was curious about the catfish system you showed before. Where all the catfish are contained in small areas for ammonia. What is the advantage of having all the fish in one small area?
Manageability. That's probably the main thing. Yeah.
Yeah, just to elaborate on that, Pentair is working with Auburn State University, like you mentioned, and what they're calling an in-pond raceway, which is what I think Chris had at the end. And just going into a little bit more detail, manageability meaning rather than now you typically feeding the whole pond and not knowing what's in there, you're using the whole pond as your grow-out area. However, you're just concentrating your fish in a it's similar to a net pen, right? So an in-pond raceway where you can aerate and do your feeding and everything else in that just a small area. So you're not wasting, you're maximizing by not wasting feed by just putting it in an acre pond. You're just doing it in a small area.
Yes.
Are you seeing growth in the zero waste systems? In local food systems, we tour around the country. We see tilapia being grown, and we see like salad greens where the fish waste fertilizes the salad greens. So it's like a zero waste system. Is that something touching on with large commercial systems, or is that just very small scale?
Right now, small scale. It's mostly hobbyist, what I would consider hobbyist. There is a professor out of Alberta that does, what he has is a zero waste facility. He's been working on it for the last 10 plus years, I believe. It's in a commercial, what he would like to be as a commercial aquaponics facility. But in terms of real life out there, there isn't anything that's big doing that right now.
And what I've seen in proposed projects on that larger scale, typically 80% of the income is coming from the plant side, and only 20, or less than 20% is coming on the fish. Yeah, 80% of your capital is on the fish, and so it's really flopped around. And so you have to have other reasons to want to put the two together than just doing a pure hydroponic facility.
Quick question, aquaponics, growers out here, raise your hand. Hobbyists. So, anybody want to, please stand up. Everybody? So as we go on through the day, you want to talk to people in the aquaponics. These are the folks you want to meet up with.
I'll tell you what I love, fish love it, our water's clean, smells nice.
There you go.
My discharges, I wish I had more.
Question?
Yeah, I've seen that data collection and automation are two key ways to minimize risk. And in the current tech system, these aren't really affordable options. Looking at the price of meters, especially in Michigan, we have HANA instruments that supplies your pH meters, result oxygens. The current price, people are spending thousands of dollars on meters, which is a large barrier to entry. I found, personally, as someone who develops hardware, it's easy and simple to make your own systems at way cheaper, which unfortunately, though, is not really an option for most people getting into the industry. So my question is there an effort in the textile industry to make these meters and these hardware solutions more affordable and usable?
First, let me say this. You're saying it to the right crowd because Pentair is going up and buying everybody out.
Including where Steve came from. He was on the instrumentation side.
Yeah, I'm actually from the 0.4 monitoring system side from British Columbia. And Pentair bought us out and Aquatic Ecosystems initially to get into the aquaculture market. But just getting back to your question, it's traditionally, if you look at aquaculture industry, right, i.e. salmon industry globally, it's been run by three companies, right? Cermaq Marine Harvest, Greek Seafoods, and Cook Aquaculture and whatnot. Their business model is huge compared to what we're trying to do here. They're multi-billion-dollar industries, and to them, $1,000, $1,500 probe is nothing, right? It's just cost of doing business. And if you actually look at a facility. Right now, there's a study out by Dr. Sommerfeld out of Freshwater Institute that says to do a 1,000 metric ton unit, you're looking at, from greenfield site, you're looking at about $30 million US CapEx-wise to get that built, right?
Actually, it's 3,000 tons.
3,000, yeah, that's right. 3,000 metric tons. Sorry, did I say 30?
Yeah.
3,000 metric ton. Now, if you look at that and you look at how much the water quality monitoring portion for the CapEx cost, it's minuscule. So in that term, it's not a big component. However, if you're starting out and you're a smaller size, it can be a barrier to entry. And there's various ways of doing, kind of getting around it. And just going back to your question, there are some companies like YSI, Pentair that were providing not the 1,500, but the more economical ones. But it's in the works, and there isn't too many out there right now. Not at least for all the parameters that you're probably looking at anyway. So,
On small scale observation and determine testing without the investment is really the only way to work.
Yeah, so you're doing manual stuff, right? Rather than having automatic monitoring, you have. Yeah.
And that's where I'll go back to. That's back to that supply chain question, because it's really, if you're going to be a larger industry, this becomes a major issue for productivity and the cost and the security. But if you're just in the small scale side of it, it's not as major of an issue.
I'd love to shop on the net. Just look at all this stuff.
We're pretty net savvy at Grange Insurance. We understand what the web does well.
Buying insurance online? That's another matter.
And not so well.
Your partner in protection.
Whether you're a first-time jewelry browser looking for an extraordinary engagement ring, a couple celebrating your 60th anniversary, or you're just looking to treat yourself or mark an important event, Rothheim & Swanson Gemworks is proud to offer custom-made selections handcrafted in America. Silver, fine-colored gems, diamonds, and gold jewelry, as well as strands of lustrous quality pearls. From ring and watch appraisals to in-house jewelry design and repair, ring sizing, remounting, to a complete rebuilding, you can rely on them to keep your old favorites looking new. K&S Gemworks, Muskegon's community jeweler. Memories made one at a time.
Muskegon's Hackley Public Library is an excellent source for help, information, and great entertainment on virtually any topic. The friendly, knowledgeable staff is always available to help you with finding information on any topic you need. They can help you with using the free public access computers, and they look forward to showing you books, audio CDs, DVDs, and much more. Whether you live in the city or outside, the Hackley Public Library in downtown Muskegon is there to help with everything imaginable.
Good news, we just got the Stevens account. Get Jacobs on the horn and schedule a meeting pronto. Order lunch, something fast, Smith.
It's Jones, man.
Yeah, look, we'll leverage a synergy on both sides.
Hi, Jimmy Jones?
Yeah, no, look, the boys...
Jimmy Jones.
Yep, sky's the limit on this one. Make sure the Silverman file is on my desk ASAP. Did you order lunch?
Yeah, it's waiting for you.
Better be, Smith.
Still Jones, man.
Can't wait on this. Time is money.
Jimmy Jones.
Jimmy John's. Order online now.
Nice job, Jones.
Jimmy John's. Freaky fast delivery.
We have two people here who are from programs that actually are in the middle of either doing or trying to train aquaculture technicians. And so we brought them in for their help to try to evaluate what should be done in terms of training, technical skill to help in aquaculture. And the second question, I guess, is it really worth the effort? Are we going to have the jobs there to put those people into if they graduate? So I have two specialists, Hamdi Hilal, who is a faculty member at West Shore Community College, and Todd Butler, who is at Jackson Community College. And I guess we can start with Hamdi.
We actually started almost an undercover program in aquaculture training, really hands-on, and we limited the student enrollment even no more than 15 at a time. And this is going on since 1998, actually. And again, as Dr. Diana mentioned, we struggled with the question, is this a hands-on training to be an occupational program or an academic program? And the thought then it is more streamlined and more probably acceptable to the majority of students to actually have some credit under their belt in biology or zoology. And we teach, actually offer the aquaculture science as a biology credit with a lab component. But we actually have a small aquaculture facility in a greenhouse that I will talk about in a second. Also fish biology, again, the basic science behind fish farming and the lake biology, and you can see the numbers there are definitely impressive for a remote rural community college in Northwest Michigan. We are located, by the way, in Scottsville, Michigan, if you are wondering. We offer also 1 credit hour of chemistry training, a two-day seminar usually, workshop with an open book final exam on water analysis, and actually students bring their own water. And this has been very successful offering too. There is no degree called aquaculture yet, but we are going to work on that. And then the challenge of is it occupation, which some community colleges around the United States are actually considered occupation. More challenges, distance from any possible internship, or the facilities are close to us, are hiding. We are running undercover program, and we are surrounded by undercover fish farmers. So we need to definitely have that option. Job training opportunities, which is actually linked to the job opportunities in the state of Michigan in that discipline. This is the greenhouse. It is a newer building when I started this program in 95, I had to watch how much water I should put in a 300-gallon tank. I was not allowed because it was first put in a portable building, a double wide trailer. We have two recirculating systems, 300-gallon tank, and I'm very proud to say, to guarantee the predictability of a course running for 15 or 14 weeks, I use koi most of the time. Where I say, why are you using this? The water quality challenges, and especially we are using very questionable water quality from groundwater too. But I managed actually to raise successfully a few tilapia, some catfish, and actually successful round of bluegill and yellow perch even. So this is the hands-on experience that we get students to actually talk about preventive measures for fish health, water quality, food, and food selection, and the basic science behind aquaculture. And our friend Paul here is trying to raise his famous duckweed colony on top of this tank. And also we have experiments with the water filtration system to keep these alive. And then the first aquaponic system in West Michigan in an academic institution. A blue economy, big picture, to look at the future, definitely collaboration. And I have to say, as an academic advocate for all students in higher education, they are not 100% free labor. So please think about that. The questions for the futures are very big. The largest tilapia producer in the state of Minnesota, is that true statement, Chris?
They went out of business.
Oh my goodness, okay. My best example that we have to have some energy component in our design and thinking for greenhouses and or water heating. And as some of the audience actually advised me, we don't really have to heat the water like our bedroom temperature. We can just sustain a little bit by using solar energy. And also the aquaponics component and so forth.
I'm the academic dean at Jackson College, formerly Jackson Community College. Part of what I want to speak with you about, and I'm painfully aware that Dr. Hamdi and I are the only thing standing between you and lunch. I feel like I'm Tweety Bird and you're Sylvester, and I'm talking to you and you're seeing a drumstick. That's about it. I get that. But what I want to talk to you about is less of what we're doing at Jackson College and more about what the raw potential is across the state. A part of that is just being a good magician, that I'm woefully ignorant of this and I need to distract you and have you look at something else. There are 28 community colleges in the state. There's one agricultural institution at Michigan State. And I think for way too long in the state, we've imagined that Michigan State can and should be meeting all the agricultural needs across the state. It's a flagship institution nationally, but it cannot and should not be our only avenue to meet these needs. The community colleges are poised to move into this field, and I think for several good reasons that I'll share with you about. But first of all, let me back up one moment. I've spent 23, 24 years in higher education. I came to Jackson Community College 5 years ago, and it was my first venture into the community colleges. I'd always worked at four-year institutions, whether it was a private institution or a public. We take jobs for various reasons, and I landed at Jackson Community College, and I brought with me a no small amount of snobbiness about what a community college could do. I was immediately humbled and changed by what I found there. And in particular, I want to speak about the quality and the integrity of the science and math offerings, not at Jackson College alone, but again and again when I travel around the state and I work with our liberal arts deans around the states at these community colleges, I'm blown away by the quality of our science faculty and their programs in particular. They are poised to work in the aquacultural industry. They're ready to do this. Each conversation that I have with my faculty, they begin seeing what they do every day and how it can serve this industry. What we do now at these institutions is two things. We're either preparing folks to go off to U of M or MSU and be science majors, or we're largely supporting a nursing curriculum. We have all these guys who have boots and want to be out in the field doing work, and they're hungry for these sorts of opportunities. They're hungry to teach applied science to folks interested in aquaculture. What we are looking at is an applied science degree. We feel like if we're going to be training people, we should always be credentialing them with something that means something beyond that first-tier job. And so what we're designing right now is an associate's in applied science in aquaculture. We still have a long way to go there, and a part of that will be what's happening with the industry. Community colleges are set to be responsive to the needs of the community, and we are constantly approached by folks from the community who say, we need these types of skills, we need these types of job-ready folks, mid-skill level folks. Can you start a program with it? So the first thing we ask is back it up. Show us where these jobs are at. And the second thing is show us that these jobs can pay a livable wage. More often than not, when we are forced to say no as a community college to a request, it's for that second part. That you can show me that this industry will grow, but if I can't show that student how they're going to repay those loans, how they're going to support a family on that wage, then we get verifiably nervous about that. And that's an industry-wide challenge for all of us, is to think about sustainability, not just in terms of our environment, but in terms of humanity and a livable wage. So we are ready to work on those things. We feel like we have the capacity, we have the interest, and we have the expertise to do it. I would say that about almost all of your community colleges. They are within very close distance of every place that would be interested in aquaculture. We're incredibly affordable in terms of our tuition, and we can build programs that not only ladder or scaffold their way into four-year programs at a place like MSU or Lake Superior State, but also there's a growing movement within the state to offer baccalaureate degrees at the community college level in very specific technical fields that are in need of it. Northwest Community College is offering a baccalaureate up in Traverse City, is offering a baccalaureate in maritime technology. And we are offering a baccalaureate in energy systems technology. This may very well be a field that starts off meeting a job need at the community college level with an applied science degree. Within a few years, we may see that it's a field that is in need of management principles layered on top of that, marketing principles laid on top of that, project management, organizational quality control classes that might be layered on top of a two-year technical degree to allow folks to go out and succeed in these fields at all levels. So the capacity is there, the potential is there, and we just need to respond to that as that grows over the years.
Northway Lanes, 1751 Evanston Avenue in Muskegon, featuring 50 auto-score lanes, cosmic bowling, billiards, a cafe and banquet facility, lounge and pro shop. Looking for somewhere to hold your child's next birthday party? Northway Lanes can supply everything you need, from invitations and decorations to personal pizzas, hot dogs and fries, to soft drinks, ice cream and goodie bags, even a private party room.
With 4 convenient locations, Jack's Corner Store is one-stop shopping at its best. Tools, fresh meats, produce, chips, snacks, and other grocery items, beer, wine, and liquor, even gas and lottery. That's why Jack's is your corner store and so much more.
People often ask, what is elder law? Elder law is a specialized practice of law that encompasses estate planning, preservation of assets, long-term care planning, Medicaid planning, and veterans benefits. Many estate planning attorneys do not specialize in elder law. If you're seeking help because you or a loved one must reside in an assisted living residence or nursing home, you'll want advice directly from an elder law attorney. Anna Duggins has been a member of the State Bar of Michigan for 16 years and a partner at Parmenter O'Toole. She is extremely empathetic with her clients' situations and provides a holistic approach to solving their problems. Anna Duggins is an elder law attorney. Anna and her caring staff will answer all of your questions, working with you every step of the way and ensuring that you make informed decisions about your future. She can be reached at 231-722-5415, or you can email her at aud@parmenterlaw.com.
When your transmission is in trouble, it is important to find reliable and honest mechanics. National Transmission will get the job done right. Located at 4037 East Apple Avenue in Muskegon, you can call them at 231-788-3244.
The Glenside and Northside pubs, from sandwiches, burgers, and Mexican food to starters, salads, soups, and desserts, not to mention their specialty pizzas like Hawaiian, vegetarian, chicken Alfredo, and of course their grand finale. It's the Glenside and Northside pubs.
24 hours, 7 days a week, it's Ramos to the rescue. For accidents, lockouts, jump starts, tire changes, or gas delivery, the experienced drivers at Ramos Towing will be at your side within a matter of minutes. Whether it's a motorcycle, medium duty, or a flatbed, whatever you need, just remember, it's Ramos to the rescue.
Now we're open for questions or ideas on what should be involved in training and whether we should be really thinking of expanding that.
The fees, the regulatories, they're going to be applied to a massive facility or applied to a single tank. And it stops you from being able to do a crawl, walk, run scenario with slow growth. If that's not met, you're stifling everybody that makes corporations.
I would say from a market perspective too, the local food movement, a lot of people find it appealing to buy their produce from a small family farm. So I think the small family aquaculture farm too should be pushed that way. You know, these small farms are small family local farms, just like a dairy farm or a produce farm.
Actually, this is a very important component because my first lab in a science course for aquaculture is do a market survey in our community. So there is a small business component, but I am not a business educator, but I advocate that angle very much and business plan and so forth.
We certainly see that as an integral part of the education. I think the model that's out there right now is we're watching these multinational corporations gobble up everything that says natural or organic on it right now. I suspect that a few years from now, if we gathered this same group together, that we're going to begin to see that process happening here. Small family farms, aquacultural initiatives are growing. Suddenly they become a hot commodity, and there's a different business model that gets inserted or overlaid on top of these small family farms. That's a good problem to have a few years from now, but it's not our problem right now.
Just a thought, how many of you are running fish farms? How many of you got academic training to run fish farms? Right. The rest, sort of a family background. How many did it because it was in their family? All right. Other reasons?
Fascination. When I first heard about shrimp being cultured by taking off the left eye of the female so she'll breed, when I was like 18, it captured my imagination.
You go around taking out eyes of females all the time. Okay, so I think there is that variety really still. It's not a one sort of everybody does the same thing.
Well, one thing that I enjoyed under Dr. Halal is able to do a lot of independent studies. And the more single credited investors I could do, the more leeway I had, and less observation and criticism. And by being able to do so and having more people have that opportunity, you're not being focused into what are programs directly and methods that will work that aren't even being considered by some, or could be invented by others who are doing these independents. And those could be the breakthroughs that come through and really turn something around.
Thank you. Somebody over here had a comment.
In regards to the technician, product technician, as a standalone program, there's no way it's going to make a livable wage for that person at this point. It's not going to happen. But you have already established through MSU and through other community colleges a vet tech program, is to focus on that group of people and make that as an elective type program and build on it from there. That way they have a livable wage job that they can have special interest in and be available to the community. So that is
Well, there's certainly a lot of overlap, whether you're looking at quality, water management quality, which every municipality needs that sort of skill. Whether you're looking at a narrow focus as part of a larger ag tech degree. Many of our farms, and I suspect if I asked you now, if you're only making your living on your farm through aquaculture, you're probably not. You're probably already multifaceted farm, and it could be one more component of a person's portfolio of what they're trying to create on the farm to keep that homestead alive, to keep that sustainable. So you're right. We have to layer it. We have to modularize in some ways.
Thank you. We have closing remarks from Amber and Dan.
My name is Amber Mae Peterson. I'm the owner of the Fishmonger's Wife in Muskegon, Michigan. I am actually married to Eric Peterson, who is a fourth-generation commercial fisherman on Lake Michigan. So since 1927, Eric and his family have been commercial fishing Lake Michigan. So I get to be here today because Jim called and wanted Eric to talk, and Eric said no. But my wife will do it. And that is how I get all my publicity. Everybody calls, they want to talk to Eric, they say no, and that comes back to me. So thank you for letting me go first, because I never get to be first. So why I'm here today, though, is I'm actually with the Michigan Fish Producers Association. And we are the professional organization for Michigan's state licensed commercial fishermen, wholesalers, and processors. We also have members that are tribal commercial fishermen too. We were established in 1941, so we're actually the oldest fishermen's association in the Midwest. We work to promote our industry, is really what we do. So that brings me to a good question, why are we here? I mean, I feel a little bit of heat coming from the audience because I said wild caught. I feel a little uncomfortable when we talk about aquaculture. So, and the truth is that we're all here for one very important reason, and that's to sell fish. Specifically, to sell Michigan fish. Whether it's wild caught or farm raised, we want all of our restaurants and our supermarkets to be representing Michigan fish. And that's really where we're the same. All the other things that we're going to talk about, we can debate, and we could take and fill 5 whole days with. At the end of the day, it all comes down to one thing, is we want to sell fish. So that's why I'm here today, and this afternoon we'll talk a little bit more about that. But in the meantime, if you have any questions, look for someone with one of these dark blue shirts on, the fabulous back. That is a member of the Michigan Fish Producers Association, and we would love to answer your questions that you have, certainly. So, because talking back and forth between our two groups is key for us getting more Michigan fish on the plates. So, thank you.
We're here to talk about fresh, healthy, affordable seafood for the people of Michigan. That's really what we are here to talk about. And it's about making those connections and getting that availability into the marketplace and bringing that to the consumers that have made it very clear that that's what they desire. I'm glad that Amber brought up that little bit of discomfort, and I'll give her a hug later. You know, in some areas, there has been a real fist fight between commercial fisheries and aquaculture. And I think the opportunity in Michigan is to completely avoid that by just not going there. Because this isn't about us taking their market or them taking our market. The market, in my opinion, is wide open. We've heard multiple opinions on that, and there is lots of market out there. In a state where 91, or you know, in a nation where 91% of the seafood that we eat is imported from foreign countries, the opportunity for Michigan's producers to begin backfilling into that system are tremendous. And so we don't need to get in fist fights over whether people are going to be eating commercially wild caught fish or aquaculture. We're here to lead by example. We're here to talk about developing employment for Michigan's hardworking families. We're talking about providing healthy, nutritious seafood to a hungry world. We've got 9 billion people to feed on planet Earth by the year 2050, and aquaculture and commercial fisheries are going to be a major component of that moving forward, and we need to make that work. We have a responsibility to do that while conserving and protecting our natural resources. This is not about willy-nilly destructive practices. This is about doing it right. We're starting with a very small industry and we're looking to build it out, but we're looking to build it out right. We're talking about a system where there's opportunity for large facilities and opportunities for small facilities. There's opportunity across the board. It's about building the entire system and building it right. We look forward to the rest of the day. This is a fantastic event. We are really enthused to see the amount of interest that there is across the board in this discussion of Michigan fisheries, Michigan aquaculture, Michigan seafood in general, and I thank you all for attending.
I've had dozens of people tell me, just cremate me when I die and then throw a big party. I'm sure you've heard someone say that too. I completely get it. Well, I want to help you throw that party. I've got tables and chairs and easels and boards. I've got sound systems and music. I've got caterers and food. And I've got all the people to set it up and break it down when it's all over. So why don't you let us here at Clocks help you with that party so you can focus on what's important, sharing the stories.
The Health Hut, located at 3112 Henry Street in Norton Shores, offers a full line of natural and organic groceries, including fresh produce and free-range, hormone-free meats, eggs, cheese, and dairy provided by local farms. Taking pride in carrying products which contain no preservatives, additives, or unhealthy fats, their wide selection of allergen-free foods can accommodate most specialty diets. From frozen desserts and entrees to pastas, baking mixes and cereals, to soups and salad dressings, to chips, candy, and other snacks. The Health Hut. We have your good health in mind.
Hello, Jimmy John's. I'm gonna hurry.
Jimmy John's. That's fast.
Jimmy John's, freaky fast delivery. Jimmy John's, freaky fast delivery.
The Most Wanted sale is now on at Langlois. Get FBI sale prices on the Most Wanted living rooms, dining rooms, and bedrooms, and the Most Wanted HD TVs and appliances. With FBI pricing and no interest for 1 full year. Only at Langlois on Henry Street, Muskegon.
Benson's Drug Company, the home of Benson's Bottom Paint. Offering an expanded grocery selection, Medicare billing, and diabetes management and education. Benson's now features a Kodak machine, which allows customers to edit, copy, and develop their own photos.